if I traded it.
Welcome to the show, everyone. We are live on Facebook. So I want to say hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to be sharing the show afterwards. Everybody knows that I like to talk about everybody else. And I do it right here on the radio with everyone. And I'm going to go right in with my first guest, who has now been on my show several times. I have with me Garvey Biggers, and he's from the Garvey Biggers law firm. Welcome back to the show. You got to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do and what you specialize in.
Thanks, Carol. It's the Garvey Biggers law firm, and for years and years I did the personal injury business on the side of the insurance companies, where I represented the parties that were accused of being negligent. And now I have switched over and just do strictly personal injury, plaintiff's personal injury cases where I represent the actual victim of the accidents and making the allegations. So I'm up against the big insurance company all the time.
Right. Now, you've been, an attorney for 33 years. Or is it longer?
I think it might be 34 now. But
wow.
Yeah, 34 years.
And here in Arizona, right?
Strictly in Arizona, raised here in Arizona, grade school, high school, went to college at NAU in Flagstaff, and then University of Arizona Law School.
Well, let's talk a little bit about personal injury and what that really means,
Sure.
to the people that are listening. I know that it's not always car accidents. I know that obviously people think right away that's what it is, but there's a lot more that involved with personal injury cases.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you hear about all kinds of cases. In fact, believe it or not, right after I leave you today, I'm going to go meet somebody that, believe it or not, got scalded by hot coffee at a fast food restaurant.
McDonald's?
So I can't say the name of who we might be looking at, but what I'm telling you is that it still happens, and sometimes, so we have to look, is there a standard of care? For that case, would there be a standard of care for the service of hot boiling coffee when you hand it to them?
Right.
Can that just happen, and should it happen? And sometimes you investigate these cases and you go, yeah, this really isn't a very good case. But sometimes it is a valid case. So you just have to get into it and check out the facts. I go into cases beyond auto accidents. I do a lot of auto accidents, but I also look at the premises liability and the products liability types cases where. And a lot of people are saying now that the personal injury business is going to change because, the advent of all these smart cars and the way driving is going to happen in the future and not too long from now. And in fact, it's happening right now, right? So people are driving their cars in these Teslas and these different cars.
And the cars doing the work, so it's the car's fault now.
And so they have.
So that goes back onto the manufacturer who made the car, who put the computer in there wrong. Right?
Exactly. Or who maybe repaired the car and then didn't repair it correctly. So you have rear-end collisions that are probably not going to happen as frequently down the road. So a lot of personal injury attorneys are going to be going, hey, where's my bread and butter cases? Those things are out the door. And
isn't that interesting, the way life is changing so much like that now, in everywhere?
Well, it's going to change the insurance rates too, right? So there'll be fewer accidents, hopefully.
Well, maybe that'll be a reason. You had talked before you came on the show that people are going to need to know something about their car insurance. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, sure. Everybody running around with $1530 in coverage, $15,000 for an individual and $30,000 for total coverage on an accident. We call it $1530 in the business. Those are mandatory minimums. Everybody has to be carrying that much insurance to be operating legally. And if you get pulled over and you can't prove that, you get a ticket for that, and you have to show the court that you've got it before you can have your license back. So you're going to get suspended if you're not carrying $1530. Next year, in I believe it's June, the governor just recently signed a bill. It's going to go up to $25,000 and $50,000, so it's going to be a $25.50 mandatory minimum. And that's going to make a big difference on the recoveries that are obtained, or it might end up as some wriggle room for these insurance companies to actually dig in their heels and fight a lot harder, because there's a whole bunch of cases out there that are worth between $7,500 and $15,000. So if you've got $25,000 in coverage, the insurance company can fight a little bit harder, a little bit longer.
So I guess that's a good thing, in a sense.
Well, it can be good or bad. I like to think of myself as a trial attorney, so that's the difference. That's how I distinguish myself.
I was going to ask you that. Let's talk about that part of it, because what makes you so different?
So, I like to distinguish myself as different from the standpoint of when you walk into my office, I say to you, are you willing to go to trial? If we're right and I recommend going to trial, are you willing to go? And there's a lot of people who don't like to go to trial, who don't want to see the inside of a courtroom.
Right.
They like to go through their whole life without seeing the inside of a courtroom.
I'd like to also myself, but there's times where it's right, though.
So what I do is I find out, are you willing? And I try to get the client at least be open to the idea that might be something that's required if we run into one of these companies that digs in their heels and lowballs. And there's a whole culture in Arizona right now with insurance companies lowballing the individual who's been seriously injured in an accident. And that's done for a multitude of reasons, but what they do is they start off very, very low for like even less than medical bills, and they will string it out for months and months on end. And they'll blame the Arizona trial lawyers, the plaintiff's lawyers, for being litigation happy, but actually they're forcing us to file those lawsuits because then there's a risk of going to a jury and maybe a jury concluding otherwise. Now, with the 2550 policy, those insurance companies have some more wriggle room to fight and can push us to trial. Only 2% of all cases filed in Arizona actually see a jury trial.
When you work with people, do you work what's called on a contingency basis?
Contingency, yeah. So that means there's two ways to hire an attorney. One is you can go and you can pay $300, $400, $500 an hour, or you can hire them on a contingency, which means that you don't pay them until the attorney collects, and actually the attorney is taking their fee out of what is collected. So my standard fee is a third, and I would take a third and then negotiate with the lien holders, and sometimes I have to lower my fees. So
when somebody, we have a couple of minutes before we go to a break, when let's say something happens to them, whether it's a car accident or a dog bite or something more serious or whatever, what is the first thing they give you a call? What can they expect when they get into the office?
So the first thing we do is we do an intake, and we find out all the facts, and we find out, have you hurt this area of your body in the past? Has this part of your body been treated, operated on, aggravated? Did you complain about it when you went and saw your primary care physician at any time? So we try to find out a medical history, and do a good medical history of you. And then, of course, the facts of how the accident occurred is very important. And then go out and independently verify that what you're saying is accurate, and that it would be perceived to be accurate by a fact finder. Then that's what I'm talking about. Does the case have jury appeal, if you will? Right.
And so it's all about the case, and the only way that you're going to know is to have somebody who's going to listen to you, find out whether it is something that sometimes you need to go to, the trial. Sometimes you need to have an attorney like you, and you come in, like, look what happened to this person. That's not a good thing, to be scalded by hot coffee, and it could be very, 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 well, obviously he got hurt, but he deserves to be, and that's our right. I want to also say that we have a right to have people like you take care of, things when bad things happen to good people.
Yeah, so this person has his private parts boiled. So that's a
bad thing. That's really bad.
That's why his wife called me.
Well, there you go. So now we're going to give out your info. Now everybody's starting to laugh. Okay, so it's Garvey Biggers lawfirm.com. Here's the number, because it can happen to anybody. The number to call is 602-241-8550. That's Garvey's Biggers lawfirm.com. So welcome back, everyone. And we are talking with Garvey Biggers, and he's from the Garvey Biggers Law Firm. We just heard your ad just now. And, one thing I know about is that you can help people from anywhere in the state.
I traveled all 15 counties. I used to say 14. We only had 14 at one time in this state. Now we got 15.
And only you know that because you've been here so long. But you're also rated with the Better Business Bureau. You're 5-star rated with them. You work on a contingency basis, so you're here to talk to people, kind of hear a little bit about you and what makes you different. One of the things that we do want to talk about is, some people don't necessarily think it's right for people to do this, but I personally think that it's our constitutional right to be able to. Let's talk a little bit about what you feel about that.
So the 7th Amendment of the United States Constitution gives every person in the United States, our founding fathers believed that everybody should have a right to a jury trial in all civil matters. A lot of people don't know that. I belong to an organization called the American Board of Trial Advocates, and it's I like to say it's a highly esteemed organization, but you have to have so many trials and so much trial experience to get into that organization. And we stand for the right of the everyday person, the everyday individual, to his or her right to a jury trial in all civil matters. So from the outset of our United States getting put together, our founding fathers believed, yeah, you're entitled to a jury trial in all civil matters. So it isn't wrong from that standpoint. Some people would look at it from a biblical standpoint maybe, or a religious viewpoint, and say, it just doesn't feel right, and it doesn't feel right. But then you go to the fact that you've got mandatory auto insurance in this state. What do we have that for? Well, because when your car gets damaged and when your body gets damaged and you're out of work and you're on the side of the road and you can't go to work, you can't get to your doctor, what am I supposed to do? And well, you're supposed to make a claim against an auto policy. That's why the state legislature years ago, and why the governor just upped the limits to $2,550, because the government itself wants you to make a claim so you don't end up on the government, welfare rolls.
Right, bankrupt.
Yeah, they don't want you. So
that's another thing. That's another story, though.
But I mean, the overall thing is it's not morally wrong. In my opinion, I wouldn't be doing a morally corrupt job. But sometimes the advertising and the inundation for billboards and bus stops and light rails, and you can't watch a TV show at night without seeing a commercial with a personal injury attorney advertising. I do none of that. You won't find as I've said before to you, this mug doesn't really photograph too well, but no, I don't do any of that. I promote myself a little bit on Facebook, a little bit here and there on Instagram, and I promised my office staff and my family that I would get into the 21st century by the end of 2019 and before 2020. But I don't do any advertising, and I think our work is good work for the person who has been derailed because of no fault of their own.
Well, radio's been around forever, but I was going to say, I think what makes this different is that it's not about the advertisement part of it. It's about discussing with the public what their rights are, right? It's information. That's right. What this is, and it's good to hear, and I know that you never know when you could use something like this. And what I love about my show, and I think I say it probably more than one time during my show, every time I'm on, which is it is information for people, and you never know when something can happen. So I always tell people, write things down. Right. It's here for you so that you can have this information. God forbid something does happen, and you say, you know what, I need that. And so your phone number is 602-241-8550. You're 5-star rated with the Better Business Bureau. You work on a contingency basis. You've been doing this for 33 years.
Yeah, and so I was saying to you when we were taking a break is, a lot of people get really nervous hiring an attorney, and my job is to try to put you in your comfort zone while you're in pain, believe it or not, but I try to leave the job of getting well to you, going to see the right physicians and the right doctors and getting the x-rays and the MRIs and all those things that you need to get, and leave the paperwork and the gobbledygook dealing with insurance companies and then the lien holders, because everybody's got their finger in the pie now. And I talk about, how I'm really a conservative Republican in real life and a precinct Republican committee man, and yet I see the individual getting beaten up and by laws that were enacted by big corporations lobbying legislatures and Congress, so that the system is a little bit rigged on behalf of the big corporation against the little guy. And so all day long, I'm fighting for the little guy. I feel like it anyway, because we're going against hospitals and doctors and big insurance companies. We'll get a big pot of money for you, and then everybody's got their finger in it saying, no, this is mine too, this is mine too. Mm-hmm. And my job is to say, wait, not so fast. You don't necessarily have a claim. Sometimes they have a legitimate lien, and sometimes they don't. So when you try to handle your case on your own, you goof it all up. And so my recommendation always, when they first come in my office, I'm always saying, hey, stay off that Facebook, stay off Snapchat and Instagram and all these social media, because the insurance companies are right now, they're tracking you. They're going to gather that information. And funny enough, about 3 years ago, I was in the deposition, and the opposing attorney showed my client a picture of himself diving for a volleyball. That was about 10 days after the accident occurred. He'd gone to Rocky Point and was playing volleyball on the beach.
And he uploaded it?
And he uploaded it, and there was a gap in his treatment, and the defense attorney was smart enough to go on the Facebook, and there he was, sprawled horizontal, about 4 feet off the ground, diving for a volleyball. And I didn't know that. And so, you get what you get when you do what you do.
Right.
And, he didn't tell me that, but he got caught, and he paid a price for it at the time that, we arbitrated the case. So, anyway.
You got to be careful, but you're here now to make sure that you're to take care of them. There are to make sure that everything that you do, you are doing on their behalf, so that they do get what they deserve, and certainly not from everybody does try and get a little bit out of the pie for sure.
That's what we try to do, is maximize the recovery, and we are not a mill, we are not an advertising company, so we don't have a monthly advertising budget to make. A lot of these big advertising plaintiffs firms that you see late at night and on the side of billboards and buses and whatnot, is they have a big budget.
It takes money to do that, so where do you get it from, right?
And you settle and you churn the cases and you crank them out. And they might get done faster at those firms, but we get the maximum. We'd like to think that we get the maximum recovery for you, because we've always got the club and we're ready to go to trial if you want to go.
The phone number is 602-241-8550. He's a 5-star rated with a Better Business Bureau. It's Garvey Biggers lawfirm.com. Real quickly before we go, because I want to do at least one, a case that you might want to talk about.
So I do a lot of gun cases, believe it or not. In Arizona, a lot of people have guns, and a lot of people who have guns haven't had the training. If you're a gun owner, I'd recommend you go get that NRA training or some schooling on safe handling of guns. But I do a lot of those gun cases where the gun accidentally discharges. Recently did one at a gun range down in South Mountain. Somebody got shot on a hiking trail. I also did one, we went to trial last year, got the 9th largest verdict in Maricopa County, the state of Arizona actually, and it was several $1 million, and but it was a party. It was a group of 20-some-year-olds, and there was drinking, and there was alcohol, and somebody pulled out a gun, and there was a little argument, and the guy held the gun to the back of this feller's head, and the gun discharged, and it killed the young man. And so we represented the family in that, and it was one of the very saddest cases I've ever had to do. Cried 7 times during the trial. I did. I've done this work for 34 years, never cried once in the courtroom. Last year, that trial was just a tearjerker, and the jury was outraged by the behavior. But there's a gun. There's guns being discharged every night, all day long in this city, and if somebody gets caught by a bullet, we're here to do those gun cases.
Wow. We have 1 minute. Do you have another one that you might want to say real quickly?
Well, just so we have a focus on products liability and premises liability. So it's just not your everyday average slip and fall case, but where maybe a product has malfunctioned or what seemed to be defective and injured somebody. Last year we did another case involving a trip in a big sporting goods store against a tent manufacturer who designed a tent that was poorly designed, and the person got seriously injured, and we collected a lot of money for them.
There's a lot of different types of stories out there, but you're here to help.
We're here to help.
And they work with people statewide. Their phone number to call is 602-241-8550. It's Garvey Biggers Law Firm.com.
Thank you.